Ayman screams Indianness in every step it takes. Be it simulating agendas that are relevant to India or sensitizing students across countries about Bharat by introducing them to yoga, Ayurveda, Indian traditional clothes, or even serving them Indian food. As an organization, they may have hosted luminaries from all walks of life, but the ones that they revere the most remain those in uniform. These are the people who are the epitome of leadership. We are because they are. They gift us the freedom to go about our daily lives without any worry as they guard us at the border. And when it comes to taking what it means to be an Indian, there is nobody better than the Indian Armed Forces. A custodian of our maritime and a living testament to the prowess of the Indian Navy. A stalwart guardian navigating the vast seas, a symbol of our pride, a protector of our sovereignty. Please welcome on stage the 25th and current Chief of Naval Staff, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, ADC, Admiral Radhakrishnan Hari Kumar.
Mr. Rishabh Shah, founder IIMUN, Sri Ajay Perumal, Chairman Perumal Group, distinguished guests, esteemed faculty, vibrant students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. I see before me so many of you there that your numbers total to about 25% of the entire Indian Navy being present here. The Indian Navy is about 70,000 strong. We are about 60,000 sailors, 10,000 officers, and then we have about 30,000 civilian personnel. So when I look at about 20,000 personnel present here, you actually represent a quarter of the Indian Navy. So it's indeed a matter of great pleasure and privilege for me to be here amongst you today in this royal city of Vadodara, famous for its culture and art. So at the outset, may I offer my congratulations to the team of India's international movement to the United Nations, IIMUN, for ideating and executing a thought-provoking discussions for students and encouraging them to participate in various activities. The overwhelming response of all these sessions are indeed a testimony to the exemplary work being done by this organization. Over the past 1 year, IIMUN has successfully conceptualized and organized conferences in various cities and countries with the participation of numerous institutions in these events. And I'm sure that these stimulating lectures by eminent personalities across various walks of life have inspired and educated the young minds through their valuable life lessons. My compliments to the entire team, and I'm sure that with Mr. Rishabh Shah as the skipper, you will continue to encourage and motivate the youth in all your future endeavors. So as we convene here in this place with promise and potential, I am reminded of the incredible journey that each one of us performs. The journey of education, enlightenment, and empowerment. So today I want to embark on a conversation about not just the growth of India, but also the pivotal role that each student plays in shaping this path. we find ourselves at a crossroads in history with the responsibility to carry forward the legacy of a grand old civilization and the aspirations of a young country that has seen unparalleled growth, resilience, and transformation. I want to share with you a narrative that intertwines with the growth of our incredible country, the vision set by our leaders, and the profound responsibility that each one of you holds in shaping the destiny of our beloved Bharat. Like many of you, I found myself at the defining moment of opportunity, faced with choices that would shape the trajectory of my life. And in those choices, I discovered the power of education, a force that could propel me forward and contribute meaningfully to the growth of our nation. The only mantra to harness the power of education is to read, and to read continually. Read anything and everything that you find interesting, not just your academic subjects. It will expand your horizons and diversify your thought. After all, if you see a book as an acronym, what does it stand for? It stands for a box of organized knowledge, BOOK. So there is no better way of generating a mentor for yourself at very, very low cost. You can have the ancients like Plato, Socrates, any of them as your mentor if you choose to read. So one book I would recommend all of you who have not read it is to read a book called How to Read a Book. This is a book written by Mortimer J. Adler. It is freely available on the internet, and I recommend that you read this book, and it will help you read more and more and gain knowledge. It may interest you to know that Warren Buffett, I'm sure you would have heard of Warren Buffett. He is the world's most prominent and successful investor. He reads 1,000 pages a day, every day. So that just shows the power of reading and what it can do for you and where it can take you. So it is in these formative years that one has to realize also the importance of dreams and the power of resilience. As our late President APJ Abdul Kalam had said, you have to dream before your dreams can come true. So India, much like the ocean named after the Indian Ocean, has witnessed waves of change and is continuing to do so. So from the earliest civilizations along the banks of the mighty rivers to the bustling metropolises of today, our journey has been one of growth, evolution, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. You must remember that you will never rise any higher than what you think. So the vision set by our Honorable Prime Minister for Bharat in 2047 isn't just a vision. It is a call for action and invitation for every citizen to be an active participant in shaping the destiny of the nation. The dream of Kartavya Kal is not confined to economic benchmarks, but it extends to every warp and weft of the fabric of our society. It's a blueprint for a new Bharat, a nation that embraces technology, fosters innovation, and upholds the principles of justice and equality. It's a vision that places the well-being of our citizens at its core and envisions a society where every individual can unleash their full potential. As students, you are not mere spectators in this transformative journey. You are the architects of this vision. You are the torchbearers who will carry forward the flame of progress into the future. Your education, therefore, is not just a means to personal success, but it's a powerful tool to contribute meaningfully to the growth and prosperity of a nation. In my own journey, I found a reflection of this vision in the dynamism of the naval service. The Navy, with its commitment to technological innovation, sustainability at sea, and a diverse workforce, embodies these principles set forth for the Kartavya Kal. Each ship that sails and each mission that is undertaken is a testament to the potential and progress of our great nation. So now let me share a lesson, one that I carry with me as the Chief of the Navy. The sea or the ocean holds a promise of adventure and opportunities with its infinite horizon. Being vast and unpredictable, it demands alertness, adaptability, decisiveness, willingness, professionalism, and fortitude to navigate uncharted waters. It teaches us that challenges are not roadblocks, but opportunities for growth. In the same vein, the challenges faced by our nation should not be seen as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for collective growth. As students, your education equips you with the skills and knowledge to navigate these challenges, to find innovative solutions, and to be agents of positive change. So you might be wondering, how can each student contribute to India's growth and development? The answer lies in realizing the power you hold as individuals and as a collective whole. So embrace innovation, cultivate resilience, and uphold social responsibility. Strive for excellence, not just for personal gain, but for the greater good. As you pursue your education, let it be a journey of self-discovery, a journey that empowers you to contribute meaningfully to society. So let me dwell on each of these briefly. Firstly, innovation. The world is changing at an unprecedented pace, driven by technological advancements and groundbreaking ideas. As students, you are at the forefront of this change. Whether you are studying engineering, medicine, social sciences, or any other field, you have the opportunity to be pioneers of innovation. From the Stone Age onwards, as human beings, we have been used to linear thinking. But today, changes are happening exponentially. Exponential growth is what is driving the current technology, the current changes that we are seeing. A simple example is, if you take a piece of paper and you try to fold it into two, and then you try to fold it again and again. A piece like this, you fold it once, you fold it again, and you continue folding 50 times. What do you think will be the thickness of that paper? Anyone? When we think linearly, we will think, okay, you're folding it, it might become this much, 50 times. But it is actually exponential. That is 2 to the power of 50. When you look at 2 to the power of 50, it is 70 million miles, or the distance from the earth to the sun. So we have to change and to start thinking exponentially. Most innovations, you must also remember, have happened by domain experts, by hobbyists, priests, rectors, so over 70% of the innovation in the last 200 years have not been by scientists, but by people like who are interested in finding solutions. So therefore, I would urge you to see that you look for innovation, see how you can improve things and make a difference. So take inspiration from the great minds who have shaped history, innovators like C.V. Raman, Homi Bhabha, Vikram Sarabhai. And today, as you engage in your academics, think not only about what has been done, but what can be done. Challenge the status quo, push the boundaries of knowledge, and let your ideas be the catalyst for positive change. I am reminded of the words of George Bernard Shaw, where he said, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world, while the unreasonable one persists in adapting the world to himself. Therefore, all change and progress depends on the unreasonable man." We need to be in search of people like that. We need more of you to be like that, the unreasonable one who tries to adapt the world to yourself. That is how change will happen in our nation. So there is no limit to human imagination, no limit to human achievement, except the limit that we set on ourselves. So beauty of innovation lies in actively seeking and embracing failure. The second point is about resilience. This is a quality that cannot be overstated. The path to success is rarely a straight line. It is often marked by challenges, setbacks, and moments of self-doubt. However, it is in these moments that resilience becomes your greatest asset. Embrace challenges with an open mind, learn from your experiences, and let adversity be the springboard to your success. You might like to read a book called Anti-Fragility, written by Nicholas Nassim Taleb, where he talks of developing this quality of anti-fragility. It means that with every setback that you face, you should try to become stronger and stronger to gain success. It is said that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So therefore, you see how these are interrelated. The ability to adapt and persevere in the face of challenges will not only shape your personal journey, but also contribute to the collective strength of our nation. Our nation's history is filled with stories of resilience, from the time of the independence struggle to facing economic challenges to overcoming COVID. As students, you are the fortunate inheritors of this spirit of resilience that is there in our country. So remember that understanding how to act under conditions of incomplete information remains the highest and the most urgent pursuit for human beings. There is a famous statement by Donald Rumsfeld where he talked of the known unknown and the unknown unknown. Your education, your training and studies will help you, prepare you for the known unknown. But it is your broad reading, broad understanding, and broad education that will help you handle the unknown unknowns. So you take the example of ships during the times of conflict. In the event of being hit by a missile or a bomb, that a particular compartment or a zone in a ship gets damaged. So we tend to isolate it so as to stop the spread of fire or water to other compartments. This situation is then quickly assessed in terms of strengths and shortfalls, and the ship is prepared to strike back at the enemy. So we learn to survive, to float, to move, and to continue the fight. So, third point is about social responsibility, which has been alluded to in great detail by Sri Ajay Perimal also. It is the cornerstone of meaningful contribution. As students, you are not independent of the society that you live in. You are an integral part of it. You are very much a part of it. So Bharat's growth is not just about economic indicators. It is about the well-being of its people. Take a moment to reflect on the challenges faced by different sections of society: inequality, poverty, lack of access to education and healthcare. These are all not abstract issues. They are real problems which demand real solutions. Engage in community service, volunteer for causes that you believe in, and use your education as a tool to uplift those that need it the most. The great Mahatma Gandhi had said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So therefore, your education is not just a means to personal success, but a responsibility to contribute to the greater good. Having said all this, I would be failing in my duty if I did not even try to motivate you to join the armed forces in general and the Bharatiya Nausena in particular. The armed forces, like the sea, are protectors of our sovereignty and guardians of our freedom. Serving in uniform in the armed forces is not just a profession, it's a way of life, a commitment to something larger than oneself. Sir John Hackett wrote a book called The Profession of Arms, where he says that the life in the armed forces is about ordered application of force under an unlimited liability. It is this unlimited liability that sets the profession of arms completely different from all other professions in the world. It is public service, and at the same time, it gives you great opportunities for private excellence. You, in the Navy, for example, you get exposed to different types of technology. Today, in the Bharatiya Nausena, we operate nuclear propulsion, we operate gas turbines, we operate diesel engines, we operate steam turbines. We operate weapon systems which are state-of-the-art, the latest electrical technology, the latest computers, latest in communication, latest in IT. So it's a service where you can serve on a ship, you can serve on a submarine, you can serve on an aircraft carrier, you can fly an aircraft, you can be a navigator on an aircraft, you can be a fighter pilot, you can also be a marine commando. So there are vast choices open to you, and the Bharatiya Nausena now has women in all ranks, all roles. There is no barriers, and no department or no section is kept apart. So it's a great choice, and I would encourage many of you to look forward and join the armed forces or the Bharatiya Nausena in particular. So my talk to you would also be incomplete if I don't speak of Gujarat's Maritime Connect. Gujarat has been at the forefront of oceanic exploits for millennia. This is the land of Lothal, the oldest known dry dock in the world. The land of Barnes Thumb at Somnath, accurately pointing towards the South Pole since ages. The land of Dholavira and Dwarka, the flourishing maritime ports trading ports of ancient Bharat. So while the past is testimony to the maritime connect, the present is no different, as evidenced by the modern ports of Mundra, Kandla, Hazira, as well as by Alang, one of the world's largest shipbreaking yards. You all must be aware also that the fourth ship of the Indian Navy's Project 15 Bravo guided missile stealth destroyer has been named after Surat, the diamond city that has become a shining symbol of Bharat's economic progress. So before I conclude, I just want to touch upon 7 points or 7 traits that you need to have if you intend to be good leaders. Some of it has already been covered by Sri Ajay Piramal, and you may hear more of it from many other leaders, because most of these leadership traits are common, or I would say similar. The first point I want to say is that leadership is about solving problems. The day the people you are working with or you're leading stop coming to you with their problems is the day you have stopped leading them. So either they have come to the conclusion that you cannot help them, or they have decided that you do not care. So either case is a failure of leadership. So please remember that leadership is all about solving problems. And these are the words of General Colin Powell. The second is about leadership being a potent combination of 2 things, that is strategy and character. So General Norman Schwarzkopf had said that if you need to be without one of these and be a leader, then you better be without strategy, because you cannot be a leader without character. What Sri Ajay Piramal also said about integrity. Your character is something which is 100% required to be a good leader. The third point I would say, you need to be a visionary. You should have a vision if you want to lead people. You cannot be a cynic. There is the great story of Diogenes the Greek, who was the founder of the school of cynicism. You know, Diogenes, he had no requirement. He had no worldly requirement. He had no house. He had hardly any clothes. He hardly required food. And he lived in a barrel all his life. So there was this great meeting between Diogenes and Alexander the Great. You are all aware that Alexander the Great was a great king, a great leader, a great general. So he went to meet Diogenes. So Diogenes was lying inside his barrel, and Alexander went like this and asked him, "Sir, is there anything I can do for you?" So Diogenes just looked up from the barrel and told him, "Yes, indeed, you can step aside. You're blocking the sun." So the point that we need to see from this is, here are 2 great personalities. One is a complete cynic, while the other is a great leader, a large-hearted person who's offering something, who's a leader of troops, who's a king, and he wants to help. But on the other side, you see a cynic who knows probably the price of everything. A cynic knows the price of everything, but he knows the value of nothing. So if you need to be a great leader, if you intend to be a great leader, you should have a large heart, you should have a vision, and you should be able to take people along with you. The fourth point I want to tell you is that you need to lead by example. There is only one mantra in this. you should be able to tell your people, follow me, which means you have to be good at your job, you have to know your profession well, you should have knowledge in everything, you need to be ahead of the people you are trying to lead. So for students like you who are aspiring to get into leadership role, please remember, there is only one simple thing, and that is follow me. You have to lead, you have to tell others to follow you, and they will follow you only if you are better than them. The fifth point is about respect. This has been again highlighted by Sri Ajay Piramal about humility. You need to have respect. Respect begets respect. I don't need to tell you that respect is the highest form of human currency. You give respect, you will get respect. And you need to be humble and you need to have humility. Even in the old Roman days, you know, when the Roman generals used to come back after a very victorious campaign, they used to be taken around the Colosseum on a victory parade. So, what did the Romans do? They used to employ a slave next to the general, and he used to keep telling into the ears of the general every 2 minutes or so, remember, you are mortal, so that it doesn't go to his head. So therefore, as you become successful, as you become good leaders, remember, it is very important to remain grounded, to remain humble, to remain, have humility and have the ability to relate to the people on ground. The sixth point I have is that you need to do your duty, you need to do it well. And Swadharma is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as the noblest of actions. You need to therefore do your duty. It is the most sublime word in the English language. You can never do more and you should never aspire to do less. The last point I want to mention is about time management. Unless you manage your time, you can manage nothing else. So please remember, it is the scarcest of resource. All of us have the same amount of time and we need to manage our time well. So in conclusion, my young friends, as you navigate the exciting and challenging journey of education, remember that you are the torchbearers of India's future, the ambassadors of change. Your dreams are the dreams of India. They are the threads in the vibrant tapestry of our collective destiny. The growth of our nation is a collective effort, and you, the youth, are at the forefront of this endeavor. The vision for 2047 is not a distant dream, but a shared reality that rests on your shoulders. So may you all sail to a future filled with success and fulfillment. May your journeys be filled with purpose, passion, and a steadfast commitment to the growth and prosperity of our beloved Bharat. Thank you. Jai Bharat. Shano Varan.